All right, good afternoon, and welcome to the Milford Board of Education Special Board Meeting of March 30th, 2020, and our first virtual board meeting in the history of our schools. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
You're muted.
Okay, I unmuted you, sorry.
No, I shouldn't be.
Okay. Mrs. Brady?
Here.
Mr. Chestnut?
Here.
Mr. Miranda?
Here.
Mr. Ham?
Here. Approval of the agenda. Roll call, please.
Motion.
Motion, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes.
I'm here. Hello.
Item 1 of the Board of Education meeting is approval to suspend board policy KD BDDH, public participation at board meetings. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes. Okay, before we move into item B, I just want to take a moment to thank our leadership team, Treasurer Raid, Superintendent House, for all of the work you and your team, the administrators, the teachers, the staff, students, and our parents that have went through to get us to this point. I'm really, really proud of the fact that in terms of our online learning, we've actually been more prepared for this than a lot of districts in the area. And everyone's working extremely hard, and we appreciate your leadership on this issue.
Thank you.
And before we move into item B, I think we have some words from both Andrea and Dave Yaki.
Who wants to be first?
Are we talking about the same subject, or what do you?
Yes.
Yeah, before we
pretty
move
much.
into before we move into the discussion regarding our superintendent search, I'd like to hear from the two of you first.
Okay. Dave, you want me to go, or?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. I just want to say that I do not think that this is an appropriate time for us to be doing a superintendent search. It's such an uncertain time. There's so much going on. I think we automatically narrow our pool because we're going to have a lot of people who might be interested in moving to Milford, who at this point are not, because they're committed to their districts and they need to see this through. We don't know what next year is going to look like. So, some of these superintendents are going to be saying, I can't leave my district now. I have to make sure that we not only get through this right now, but get into next year in an appropriate way. So I would like to see us appoint an interim and do this search next year when we have a broader pool, when things are calmer, when it just seems like a more appropriate time to be doing a superintendent search.
I hadn't really heard that before, and I know that there are a few people that I've talked to who are planning to apply. I know that in choosing a search firm, however, I must recuse myself because the Ohio Ethics Commission says, since I'm serving a term this year as a trustee of the Ohio School Boards Association, and OSBA is part of the party to this situation, I must recuse myself from any search materials that go on or any discussion of that today. But I am open, I guess, in terms of discussion of postponing the search. That part of it, I guess, I can participate in. But otherwise, I must abstain from any involvement in the direct search, since OSBA is a party to the contract.
I'll raise my hand so people can see. Just quick question. This is the first time I've done a search. If we start the search and, talk to candidates, we're not committed to hiring, are we?
That's correct.
Because we could, I hear what Andrea is saying, but I think we don't know until we talk to people. But I do think that that's a completely fair possibility that we might get in there and think like, ooh.
And my concern with that is we're not really going to know if we're talking to people. We may think somebody is great, and they may be great. They very well may be, but we're not really going to know who else to compare to. So it could go one of two ways. Either we say, okay, we're going to hire this person because we believe that they truly are great, or we're going to say we're not going to hire this person because we're not sure, and then we'll have lost that person. So it just seems like going into this thinking we might have to split it in two is not the best way to go. So,
but I would also think in hiring in general, it's not one person. We're only hiring one person, right? But it's not, we don't have only one perfect fit for this. I think I would hope there are multiple qualified candidates, but we don't know who's going to come now.
Right.
I don't see a harm in looking at the field, especially knowing if we can suspend the search. Like as long as if we start one, we don't have to finish it, we can put it off. And I think the world understands now that these are unique circumstances that have never existed before.
Dave, you got any comments? Dave Miranda?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm thinking financially first. Once we obligate ourselves to a firm, to a search firm, if we then call off the search, obviously we would probably still stick with the same group that we had before, but by pushing it back by a year, are we paying another fee to do that, or is that just a one-time find the person, or have they done their job by presenting candidates and then we decide not to? First of all, that's part of it. I think the more important part, though, is we've got a 6-month period where Nancy is finishing up her term. And if we go with an interim, we're going to have another 12-month period. So now we're up to 15, 16, 17 months. And then if you do get the right person in, more than likely you're going to have to indoctrinate them a little bit into the Milford philosophy, if you will. I don't know if that's the correct word, but you're going to have to indoctrinate them a little bit about the district and things like that, regardless of how much they know. And now we're sitting a couple of years down the road before we would even consider some of the bigger projects that we've been talking about here for the last year, since last May. So I'm a little bit concerned that, and I say this all the time, I'm a little bit concerned about kicking a can down the road to a far distant time when you really maybe should be acting now. So that's just my thoughts.
We did have that situation somewhat in regard to the search for a treasurer several years ago, that we interviewed 7 or 8 candidates and decided not to hire at that time, not to hire any of the people who applied. But I don't know at this point who's available as an interim superintendent as well, if we were to go that route. So I think we may have to do a search at least in terms of that interim, if we don't find somebody we feel is satisfactory for a permanent appointee.
Well, up to a certain point, though, and with whomever we go with as a search firm, it's kind of a blind draw. We don't see names. We see kind of qualifications for a while before we ever get to the point of actually knowing who the people are, if I understand correctly the process. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct. Part of the search firm's responsibility will be to screen. And during that screening process, we won't see the candidates until they have a pool for us that they believe is qualified and fits our quality profile for that role.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my standpoint, one of the most important roles that we have as a board is to hire a superintendent. We don't know with certainty where this thing goes over the next several months or longer. And that being the case, the only thing we are certain of is that on August 1st, there is not a superintendent at our schools. I think moving forward with the search, seeing what candidates are available out there, with the understanding that this crisis could limit the amount of quality candidates that we receive. But I also believe that the Milford School District is an outstanding school district. And I believe that it will be a very attractive job to someone. Moving us forward with this search doesn't prevent us from eventually making a decision to do something different. But if we don't move forward with the search, it pretty much makes our decision that we would have to do something interim. So from my standpoint, I recommend that we move forward with determining a search firm and see what candidates are available to us.
Does interim necessarily mean from within, or can that be from
No.
without as well?
It could be, obviously, it can be somebody outside, a retired superintendent or somebody like that. I do know of 2 people who are planning to apply at this time, so I know that the pool is not 0.
Mm-hmm. I would certainly hope that that's the case. I worry that if we go outside, we're kicking the can down the road, and we're not going to really be able to. If we ever chose to put a bond on, we're not really going to be able to do that with an interim. So now you're pushing a couple of years down the road, and if it's somebody that's internal, regardless of how good we are, I mean we're single depth on the positions that we have here. If we pull somebody out of the pool that's under Nancy, directly under Nancy, now we're going to weaken a position somewhere in the chain. So I mean, there are no easy answers, guys.
I think that's a very valid point, and I think that if we are going to look at an interim, it's probably going to come from somebody who's retired from without anyway. And I think that we need to go ahead with the search and see what candidates are out there. And at that point, if we feel that we have not gotten a good selection of people to choose from, we do have the right to go ahead and decide to look for a retiree as an interim on a temporary basis and continue the search next year if that's the direction we decide to go. But to answer Dave's question, I'm sure that when we pay a fee for the search, that if it's continued and we don't hire, that we would continue with the same firm and probably would have to pay an additional fee, probably not a full extra fee for another search, since they've already started it and got the groundwork going. But I'm sure it would be a little bit of an additional cost.
And since we're entering into a contract, we can try to put whatever language that we need into that contract, I would think. And that would be a contingency, and you'd already know what the rules were and what the costs were before you ever got into it. So
right, I agree. I think that's true.
Well, without any further discussion, unless somebody wants to add some more, I think we have consensus that we want to move forward with our discussion regarding choosing a search firm. Besides Andrea, is there any other objection to that?
I don't have an objection to that. I just wanted to add my comments like Dave did, that I will be recusing myself then from this discussion since I have a relationship with one of the candidates. So.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Andrea and Dave Yaki, I would ask at this time that you would leave the meeting so we can begin deliberations on choosing a search firm.
Okay, I will be leaving the meeting and I will be monitoring the discussion on the ICRC website, and we'll come back when that discussion is finished.
We'll see you later.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, so we're going to move into item B now, which is discussion of the options of the consulting firms to assist in the superintendent search. And it's going to be the three of us that will need to make this decision. We have two options and two proposals that you should have received at this point in time. So I'd like to open the floor to discussion regarding these two proposals. One is from the Ohio School Board Association, and the second one is from CF Educational Solutions. There's only three of us, so you don't be shy.
I guess the first thing that I noticed, and it's just the way I'm wired, I guess, is I looked at the cost between the two, and then one is 250% of the other one, as far as fees are concerned, if I remember the numbers right.
I think with the expenses, one is the CF Education Solutions is going to be a little over 20,000.
Right.
And it looks like the Ohio School Board Association is going to be somewhere around 10,000 with expenses.
So fairly double here, pretty much. Nancy, when you went through this process, you came in specifically, right? I mean, you were an internal candidate. We started with you. We did not go through a search firm, if I remember right. Is that correct?
That is actually not correct.
Okay.
OSBA was used.
Okay. And you've been on this team in other roles for a while. Going back, I guess the one prior to that was Dr. Farrell.
OSBA was used for that search as well.
That was as well. Okay. And I don't think we need to go back any further than that. So
I think the OSBA is so connected to our state, and whatever I can't remember what the acronym is for the superintendent's OSBA equivalent. But I think that they have a really good pulse on the candidates that are out there and the important issues to Ohio schools. I mean, they're the professional organization, so I think that they are key. CF Educational Solutions, I feel like they had a lot of good things, but I'm really nervous about not being able to use Andrea or how that, because she contracts with them. She's a huge resource. Both Andrea and Dave are huge resources, especially with the history of Nancy coming on board, the things that the new kids, Dave and I, don't have. I think history is really important to know what's been important to our schools in the past when seeking out leadership.
but would we assume that the OSBA people would be looking at people in Ohio as their source rather than maybe pulling somebody from, I don't know, Connecticut or New York or Iowa or something like that?
Well, they could,
Yeah,
I mean, people can come from anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that their focus, of course, will be the majority of candidates will probably come from Ohio, but if they do, in their presentation, they're pretty clear that they use national tool or national search tools as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
there's
just wanted to clear up something Emily mentioned as far as Andrea being involved in the process afterwards. We do have two opinions from two different attorneys, so you've got two different opinions. The board's attorney basically said she couldn't be involved in any of it. Another attorney spoke with Ohio Ethics Commission. They're saying that Andrea would be able to participate after you selected the search firm. So obviously two different attorneys, two different opinions, but there is a possibility that Andrea would be able to participate afterwards if you selected that firm.
One is the ethics committee, and who is the other one again?
The
I
one
should know this.
was the district's attorney who recommended there was no participation in any of it. Then CF Educational's attorney spoke with the Ohio Ethics. They gave an opinion that she could. So.
And Brian, I think you should follow that up with also the opinion related to Dave Diaki and OSBA.
Yeah, we did have a conversation with Ohio Ethics. I spoke with Ohio Ethics on both cases, never really got a clear indication from them one way or the other, but I did talk to OSBA, Cheryl Ryan and OSBA, because obviously with them, this issue has had to have come up in the past. And she mentioned that it has come up in the past. Their attorneys, along with Ohio Ethics, have both said that with Dave serving in that trustee role, he couldn't be part of the discussion in the contract, but after that point, he would be able to be involved in any part of the selection process and hiring process. So basically, what the one attorney said, basically Andrea and Dave would both be able to participate after you choose the search firm with no issues.
Okay. Well, as much as I certainly appreciate both of their experience in doing this, I'm not sure that we should base the group that we select based on who can participate, but rather who's the best to find us a replacement that's somebody that's going to take Nancy's spot. So. And
I agree. I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't think if you hired the one firm, she couldn't participate, that they would still be able to participate fully.
Yeah, she sent me some of that information during lunch today, I think, the final letter. Just wanted to clarify it for me. So it doesn't sound, I don't know if I'm reading it correctly. It doesn't sound like beyond this meeting right here that we're going to be 3. It sounds like we're going to be 5 again, regardless of what we do. Is that your take, Chris?
That is my take. The only issue I have is that our own counsel provided a different opinion on Andrea's involvement, and that always concerns me that we would have to go against our counsel's advice.
Our counsel's advice. Have we fed back them any information that we've gotten post his opinion, like the ethics board and that type of stuff?
We just got it over the last couple of days.
Okay, so the answer is no.
Correct.
I wonder if that would alter his opinion or temper it somewhat. And this is not my area of expertise.
I think I'm with Chris Ham in that it just makes me quite double guess. And OSBA has proven to be successful with Dr. Farrell and Nancy in helping. They've been successful with us in the past, so they have a proven track record for our district specifically, and other districts as well. But
and I totally get that. I agree with you. I don't think either one is going to be a bad choice. I'm just.
Well, let's try and move this forward with the idea that piece is not part of the decision at this moment. But let's see if we can come to consensus without that piece first, and if we can't, then we can talk a little bit more about whether or not that's a critical weight in our decision process. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Just some general thoughts from me on this process. Reviewing both proposals, I feel like it would have been really helpful to have them present and for us to have back and forth communication, but we just simply didn't have the opportunity to do that. So we're basing it on their 2 individual proposals. And my take on CF Educational Solutions is it's a really good group of former administrators and superintendents. Dr. Farrell, who works with that company, obviously has great knowledge of the Milford Exempted Village School District and in our community. They really have pushed a personalized approach with this process. And then talking to other school districts, they've had very good experience with utilizing CF educational solutions. As Dave mentioned before, there are about $20,000 plus expenses for this search. From the OSBA standpoint, we are a member, and this is one of the benefits of being a member, one of the services they provide for an extra charge. Their connection to basically all the school districts in Ohio is a big help. Obviously, they're connected. The other school districts I talked to, they have utilized this process, and going back to the process that we've used in the past with them, they've had very good experience with utilizing it, OSBA. And as Dave mentioned, their cost is $10,000 approximately, depending upon expenses and how many times we want to do some planning sessions as we develop this. The other thing that's interesting about the OSBA proposal is they have a guarantee. And that guarantee is if no one is hired, they will do it again for us for free with expenses, which may relate back to our earlier discussion regarding our decision-making moving forward. Both of them provide detailed planning and customized processes, the specialized tools for developing a candidate profile and screening. I just personally can't see, and no discredit to either one, the additional 10,000 plus cost advantage for CF Educational Solutions, and for that reason, I would recommend OSBA.
Chris, I agree with that. I think they're both very impressive. You know, and I've never done a superintendent search. So there was a lot for me to go through. So I was impressed with the background and the components that they offered. I mean, I've only ever hired, you know, direct hire lower level people, which is a couple interviews at the end. So I was impressed with that. I definitely think that CF Educational Solutions does have a lot of brain power, and their references were impressive. But to your point, the almost double cost when we have a proven track record with OSBA hiring similar positions in the past, I just don't know if I can balance that.
Okay, and I guess I'm the guy that feels like I have an obligation to our community to make sure that we get value for what we're doing. But when we're talking about hiring a superintendent at the cost that that's going to entail, you're talking about a very small percentage of it. But having said that, there are some certain advantages there if we do decide to pull out, or if we can't find the person that we want with them. The other side of that is, you know, you've got people in CF that actually know this community pretty darn well, and I think that would be an advantage. I don't know how much of an advantage it would be with the pool that we're going to see. So.
And to be fair to CF Solutions, I do think that if we were to go back to them and ask what the additional, I mean, we're in an unprecedented time with this super weird global pandemic going on, and nobody expected this, you know, when we were scheduling and asking for proposals here. So, you know, I would hope that we could go back to them and they could make a reasonable amendment to, if we start the search and pause it and go back, you know, it wouldn't be full fee both years or something like that, I would hope. But we'd have to give them that opportunity.
Well, if they were, I guess where I end up sitting is, what if the costs were exactly equal? As if the costs were exactly equal, we would be judging based on what we thought they were going to be able to deliver, obviously, regardless of costs. So, I mean, that's kind of one way of looking at it, and at least if you say one is better than the other, then you say, but one's price is higher than the other, or vice versa, and decision is really clear, or then you've got to make a judgment. So, and where I sit, there is some comfort with having the knowledge that that Dr. Farrell is going to bring to the equation. I'm just in a perfect world where they were identical, I think I would be looking at CF, but there are trade-offs and everything. So,
am I hearing that we have consensus on one or the other?
Are we officially voting? Or my preference? How do you want me to state this?
Well, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to determine whether the three of us have consensus on a pick. And then once we have consensus on that pick, we will need a motion to select the firm and accept the offer and do a contract.
So my choice would be OSBA.
all things being equal, I'm still looking at CF and thinking there's some comfort in the knowledge that they're going to bring to this district specifically. And I also worry that OSBA is going to be concentrating much more on people that are in Ohio than doing a national search. I think that kind of fulfills part of their role there. So I'm guessing we do not have a full consensus here, Chris, at this point.
Okay.
And you didn't offer it.
We'll need. No, I did. So I think OSBA should be our pick for the reasons I stated previously.
OSBA doesn't care ultimately where the candidate comes from. Like, they have no pull in choosing an Indiana person versus an Ohio person, right? They want us to have the best candidate. They don't, right? So Dave's concern of we'll only get Ohio candidates.
Well, they're going to be more knowledgeable of Ohio candidates.
But I think when you're talking to professionals and you're in the industry, I would imagine a superintendent level candidate who comes from out of state versus in state, somebody who knows superintendents will be able to help ask the right questions, whether they know Ohio state law or Indiana state law or wherever they're coming from. We can train that sort of stuff. But I think the qualifications of a good superintendent is leadership and cares about the district and, things that aren't state specific. You could be a great superintendent in any state you live in. And in any state you had your teaching and previous experience in too. So when we had talked earlier about where candidates tend to come from, I think it's pretty standard that people stay close by in states. And it's not like in some corporations where people are, zipping all over the country for the next.
Moving from Colorado to Ohio or vice versa. Yeah.
Right. So I don't think that's a limiting factor to say OSBA knows most about Ohio candidates. They do, but I don't know that that's a limiting.
That's fair. Guys, both of these candidates that we're looking at and we're evaluating here are going to do a fine job. I mean, I'm not going to, I've given you an opinion. I am not going to stand in the way of us getting a selection here done today. So if that helps you any.
Okay. That being said, I'd like to ask for a motion on the approval of a consulting firm for the superintendent search.
So moved. And are we naming them, or we're motioning and voting and then naming? What's the order?
You're nominating somebody, I believe.
Correct. You would need to
the name of
specify.
the firm.
Okay. So in the motion, I should motion to pick a specific firm? Yes.
Correct.
Okay. I motion to choose OSBA as our search committee for the superintendent.
And as strange as this is, I'm going to second that. I think they'll do a fine job.
All right, we have a motion
And that's enough.
okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll close it and call roll, please.
Ms. Chestnut,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda,
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes. Okay, moving on. We are going to move into executive session to review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. We do not expect to be voting on anything following executive session. Can I get a motion to move into executive session?
Do you want to wait for Emily or Andrea?
That's
Dave to
right.
come
We got to
back?
bring other two back.
Right.
Okay. Will we see them pop up?
I think if you open your participant panel, sometimes their name comes there before their picture shows up.
Okay.
There we go. There's Andrea.
Aye.
You're muted, Andrea. There you are.
Still waiting for Dave.
Them pop up?
No.
Open your participant panel. Sometimes their name comes there before their picture shows up.
Okay.
There we go. There's Andrea.
Aye.
You're muted, Andrea.
Not anymore. Am I?
It's echoing. Somebody's replaying something.
Still waiting for Dave.
Yeah. Their name comes there before their picture shows up. I'm going to mute everybody, so I don't know where that feedback's coming from.
That must be a real rush of power.
If only it worked for my children, right?
I can't even make it work on a dog. Chris, is there a point where we go ahead and adjourn to executive session and catch up with Dave on the next one?
I'm not sure. Ryan, Dave has to be present in order to enter an executive session, right?
You can bring him in later, but you've got enough for a quorum that you could go ahead and do it.
Okay. Then I'm going to repeat this just for Andrea. Sorry, Andrea, I jumped the gun a little bit, but we are going to move into executive. We're going to go to executive session to review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Brady,
She's muted. Just
Sorry.
Andrea,
There you
I jumped the gun a little bit, but we are going to move into executive. We're going to go to executive session to review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We
We got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Brady,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda,
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes. Thank you.
That was easy.
Okay. Now we got to jump over to Google Hangout.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So I'm out. Is anybody home?
So Dave Yaki was going to try and join, but he was having trouble with his computer. If not, I told him we're simply just going to be adjourning, so we've got quorum.
Okay.
And we're waiting on, are we waiting on Dean from ICRC?
He's here.
Oh, he is, okay.
He's just mute.
We're waiting on Brian. Oh,
Brian's here.
Brian's here. We've got everybody here.
Yep, everybody's here.
All right.
We just need to see, is ICRC prepared to finish the recording of this?
It's still recording.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes.
They're prepared.
Okay, so we are back from, excuse me?
They're prepared to edit. Lost you.
So we are back session. I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brady,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda,
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Bye.